We are recording this, and I want to welcome everybody this evening. It's Wednesday, the 20th of October, and we've got a wonderful lineup of speakers today on a rather tough topic, but really important stuff to talk about. So I'd like to start by welcoming our first speaker, who is Secretary of the Department of Veterans Services right here in New Mexico, Secretary Sonia Smith. Ma'am, take it away.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for the invitation. It's been a while since I've actually touched base with Claudia, so I want to thank her and I want to thank Nicole for the invitation to just spend a few moments with you. You and certainly bring greetings on behalf of the Department of Veterans Services, where every day is Veterans Day. So I just want to, just talk about some things that I've been asked to talk about, obviously. And Claudia, you're right. This is one of those sticky, icky kinds of situations. And you actually gave me an opportunity to learn more about what our agency is doing, but more importantly, what we need more to be doing of. So let me just give you a few updates and then we'll talk about the burn pit. But before I do that, I think this is Nicole's birthday and I had a really cool slide, Nicole, with balloons and everything, wishing you happy birthday. So I'm going to send it to you so you'll see that I'm telling the truth. Okay. It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. So I hope you're having a wonderful birthday and thank you for being here. So just a few updates. So we have 5 new Veteran Services officers and I'm going to give you their names and let you know where they are. They are Nick McKenzie. He is going to be stationed in Santa Fe or is stationed in Santa Fe. Jesus Palomino, he is in Albuquerque. Miguel Martinez, he is in Las Cruces. We have Vince Tellez, he's also in Las Cruces. And then we just had Chris Turan, who started on Monday in Silver City. So that brings us up to 20 VSOs. We're not fully staffed yet. 26 will be fully staffed for us. And we are still very, very aggressively trying to get these positions filled. So what's on deck next are Taos and Belen. We are in final negotiations for space in Belen. And we have space in Taos. So the posting for Taos should be coming out this week. So I'm very proud to say that because I know that that is where the rubber meets the road, if you will. Our VSOs are, they're just superb advocates for what it is that we do. And many of them are also veterans themselves, so they know the language and they know how to help our veterans and more importantly, our veterans and their families as well. So also, any questions on that? All right.
I've got a quick question.
Yeah,
I've got a quick question. So 26 is what you're allotted and you've got funding for. Have we ever been at 26 in the state?
Now that I really don't know because it's my understanding that the VSO number has grown over the years. I don't think we ever started with 26. I think it's really based on what is available per fiscal year and what we ask for.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So
good.
But I can find out for you though. We probably 20 years ago, we probably had 5. Who knows how many we have? And now look where we are 20 years later. But we also reestablished the Rio Rancho office and we have Dustin Newsom there. So he started back in that office last month and he's also very busy. Okay. So a couple other things. We have been extended our highly rural transportation grant. As you know, we got a grant from the VA last year for highly rural. And if you don't know what highly rural is, that's when you have less than 7 people per square mile in New Mexico. And so New Mexico has 15 qualifying counties. So now the grant renewal helps us to cover all of those counties. And what I'm not going to do is really let my Virginia come through and try to pronounce some of these counties. But trust me when I say, and I'm going to send you the presentation that I prepared so that you can see the counties that are now covered with that. So what that means is we want people to get to their medical appointments for free. So when they call us, we work with vendors and it's an appointment-based system. You call, and you tell us you need transportation to either a CBOC or to the VA, we make sure that you get there free of charge. Any questions on that? Okay, all right.
I have one real quick, Sonia. Is
Yeah.
it true that they are extending the qualifiers for people who want to get certified to, like, say I live in a rural area and I know my neighbor's a vet. If I want to get certified to become one of those people to do rural transportation, are they still taking applications for that? You know?
Yeah, because yes, and we also met with the DAV a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about that program. We are going to highlight that very soon about how people can help their veterans, help other veterans with that program. So yeah, thank you for that question. All right. So we have for Veterans Day is definitely coming up, but before we get to Veterans Day, we are going to honor the veterans at the vet home and the workers there who are heroes to help them every day. We have like a little parade that we're planning for November 6th in TRC. We have so many counties involved in this, and we have little gifts for them. Other service organizations have reached out and said, hey, we want to put together little love baskets for them. Of course, we're not going into the facility. Everything will be outside. And for the veterans who are able to come outside and sit comfortably, we want them to do that. And we just also want the employees to know how much we appreciate everything that they're doing too. And that should have been some information in our latest newsletter about that. Okay. And so on Veterans Day itself, in addition to some of the areas that we have planned where we're going to be doing speaking across the state, we've been invited to participate in a special film series that films produced by veterans. And it is being underwritten and organized by Frederick Marks, who was the director, I believe, and producer of Hoop Dreams. And for those of you all are familiar with the film Hoop Dreams, I believe it came out back in the 90s, maybe. I don't want to make stuff up. But anyway, he's very, very interested. And he reached out to us and said he would like to partner on that. So as you can see, we got a lot of things going on. I'm so proud of all of the work that we've been able to do throughout the pandemic and keep everybody safe, and certainly keep our veterans safe as we continue to provide help and assistance. So let's talk about burn pits now. Again, as I said, this gave me an opportunity to find out what it is that we need to be doing and what we are currently doing. And so when I talked to our VSOs, I just asked the question, what's going on? Are we getting questions? Are we getting claims? Are we helping veterans with filing claims? Are we helping them get on the registry if they need help? And I wasn't too satisfied with the answer I received. I'm just going to be honest with you. I also found out through our database that we have approximately 700 veterans who qualify based on where they were deployed. And so we're going to be proactive. We're going to reach out to them and say, we are here to help you get on the registry and also to help you file claims. This year, starting in January, we have helped or filed 72 claims. But we know that there's probably a lot of the veterans out there who need assistance. I reached out to the VA Medical Center to ask them what was their process for helping veterans who want to file claims. And I was told that they refer veterans back to their primary care provider for help and assistance. That's fine, but it doesn't necessarily take care of the claims, piece. So I'm going to meet again with them to figure out how we can collaborate better. I do right now enjoy a wonderful relationship with Director Romero, with the VARO, and also the interim director, Ms. Gorga, over at the VA Medical Center. We meet on a monthly basis and we talk about a lot of things. And this has not come up, but it will come up because I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to make sure that we do something about it. I know Chris is going to be talking about how he files claims and his peers file claims. So he'll talk more about that. But there are other things that we can do besides collaborate and reach out to these veterans. We can make them a part of our Lunch and Learn series. Right now, we have monthly Lunch and Learn series. We can make that a topic and invite the relevant people and the subject matter experts to come on and talk about that. Of course, we'll put it in our newsletter. But we're going to do everything we can to raise awareness and to help veterans on this, because I look at this as an opportunity for us to do better, and we will. So thank you for bringing it to my attention. And it's just like Maya Angelou say, when you know better, you do better. So thank you so much. I stand for any questions, or you can let me know what the format is, but I will make sure that the presentation gets out.
Oh, I really appreciate that, Sonia. Thank you so much. Let's roll right into Chris's presentation. And if you don't mind, then we'll take questions, because either one of you may be best suited to answer them. Okay, thanks. Chris Shearer, are you on board, sir?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Okay, yes, we sure can. We're looking
Okay,
forward to hearing what you have
fantastic.
to say.
I apologize for not having video, but apparently VA blocks third-party software like Zoom, so I couldn't do it that way. But I'm happy to join you guys tonight and talk about a little bit about Gulf War illness and burn pit exposure. Just to give you a little background on me, I grew up in Alabama, went to the University of Auburn. After college, joined the U.S. Army as a Russian linguist, served from 1994 to 1999 with Army Intelligence. Then got out, worked in the private sector for a number of years, wanted to do something a little more meaningful with my life, took like a $60,000 pay cut and came to work at VA. And I often tell people I never regret it except on payday. I started here as a claims processor in the Albuquerque regional office, and then now I'm the change management agent and public affairs officer for the Albuquerque regional office. So I work for Director Romero. I'm going to kind of roll right into my presentation. So the first thing I want to talk about is kind of Gulf War illness. So Gulf War illness Gulf War illness and burn pit are kind of all tricky. A few years ago, I was interviewed by the Albuquerque Journal about this, and I basically made the comment that Gulf War illness is the Agent Orange of our generation. There's been a lot of research on it, not as much as I would like to see, but there's been a lot of research on it over the last 30 years. Just to kind of explain how these things work, first I want to explain the registries and what they do for burn pit and for Gulf War. So there's a lot of I think sometimes confusion about the registries and what they do. What the registries really do for Gulf War, burn pit, Agent Orange, all these different conditions is what they do is they track whatever illnesses vets in the registry have. And what they're really looking for in these registries is illnesses that occur higher than the median rate in the population of the United States. So I'm going to use Agent Orange as an example. So prostate cancer in veterans that were exposed to Agent Orange, they get that at a much higher rate than the normal population does. They have a higher rate of heart disease. They have a higher rate of diabetes. And these are flags for things VA looks for as possible presumptive conditions for these exposures. So by joining the registry and sharing with them what illnesses you're experiencing, that kind of helps other veterans, because if, for example, you join the registry and let's just say you're on the Agent Orange registry and they notice that you have hypertension, and they notice that we got a lot of Vietnam vets that and Agent Orange exposed vets that have hypertension, that kind of flags the VA to, hey, this may be one of the conditions that Agent Orange may be causing. And so that's kind of it's a really good way to kind of get conditions added to the presumptive list. And now I want to talk a little bit about presumptives and what they are. I'm going to use an example of a non-presumptive first. So I'll use myself as an example. When I was in the Army, I dislocated my right ankle. When I went to go get service connected, what I had to do is I filed my claim. They sent me to a VA doctor. They asked the doctor if, hey, is his current ankle condition related to this dislocation that he had in service? and the doctor gave me a medical opinion, and it was positive, and so that allowed the VA to kind of service connect my condition. So presumptives do not need a medical opinion from a doctor. So for example, if you are a Vietnam veteran, we can put you in Vietnam. We can assume you were exposed to Agent Orange. You have, for example, heart disease. We can grant that condition. We don't have to ask a medical opinion from a doctor. Medical opinions from doctors are, for the most part, if it's not a presumptive condition, that's the make or break part of your claim. If you, for example, I had a lot of treatment for my ankle in service, but if that doctor had given me a negative medical opinion, even though I had treatment in service, the VA wouldn't have been able to service connect my condition. With presumptives, you don't need that medical opinion, so it makes it much easier for the VA to service connect. Big thing about presumptives is making sure we get as many things presumptive for these conditions as possible. So I'm going to talk about Gulf War right now. Now, for Gulf War, a prominent condition affecting Gulf War vets is a cluster of medically unexplained chronic symptoms that can include fatigue, headaches, joint pain, indigestion, insomnia, dizziness, respiratory disorders, memory problems, and the VA kind of refers to this cluster of illnesses as chronic multi-symptom illness or undiagnosed illnesses. They try not to use the term Gulf War syndrome anymore because symptoms kind of widely vary. So for the things you have to do to qualify for Gulf War illness is basically they have to have existed for 6 months or more, and they have to be at least 10% disabling, for them to grant it. These illnesses can include, like, for example, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, functional gastrointestinal disorders. Examples of that would include like irritable bowel syndrome, functional dyspepsia, and functional abdominal pain syndrome. The undiagnosed illnesses would be like symptoms that include but are not limited to like abnormal weight loss, fatigue, cardiovascular disease, muscle and joint pain, although a lot of times that kind of falls under fibromyalgia. Headaches, menstrual disorders, neurological and psychological problems, skin conditions, respiratory disorders, and sleep disturbances. When you're filing a claim for these things, on our 5260Z forms, you definitely want to note that these are due to, Gulf War, because what they're going to do is they're going to try to verify, number one, that you're in the Gulf, and then, at that point, they're going to order you a Gulf War exam. Doctor's going to check you out. If they can diagnose you with those issues, at that point, we should be able to get that service connected. I stress the word should. The claim, the legislation for this stuff and the laws we have to follow sometimes are kind of tricky. And sometimes, like I said, these things, can get denied as well. I always tell people with VA claims, you be persistent. My first claim I filed, everything I filed for was denied. And I had to come back in and present new medical evidence and kind of take it up. And, at the end of the day, I was able to get the things I was looking for granted. Not everything I wanted to get granted, but the main things that I felt, due to my service were granted. I said Gulf War is kind of, it's kind of an ever-evolving, Gulf War illness is kind of an ever-evolving thing. They're continually doing research. They're continually changing the legislation on that. If you feel there's issues that are being caused by, that were caused by your service in the Gulf region, I often recommend people to talk to their congressional representatives, about that stuff. That's how we get, laws passed that, we can take action on. People call us sometimes, well, the VA should do this. A lot of times Congress does that for us. So, I highly recommend political action on a lot of these things if you feel it's warranted. Now I'm going to kind of roll a little bit into airborne hazards or burn pit exposure, and I'm kind of rolling through this fast because it's a lot of information. So I'm sure everybody kind of knows what airborne hazards and burn pit exposures kind of are. The VA just added 3 new presumptive conditions for what they call particulate matter exposure. That's a fancy way of saying burn pit or airborne. So for vets that served in Afghanistan, Djibouti, Syria, Uzbekistan during the Persian Gulf War from September 19th, 2001 to the present, or in the Southwest Asia Theater of Operations from August 2nd, 1990 to the present, basically if you have either asthma, rhinitis, or sinusitis, you must have gotten these conditions within 10 years of your separation from service, and they have to be service connectable at least a 10%. They can kind of grant these conditions. If you've been previously denied for these, I recommend you come back in and refile for it. The VA is not automatically reopening those cases. So you have to actually come in and refile for it if you were previously denied and think there was, now that they're presumptives. Come back in. Basically, if it was previously denied, you would file a VA form 20-0995. Just put those conditions down, the date it was denied. They're usually looking for new medical evidence. What I typically tell people is just turn in any treatment from your doctors over at the VA hospital or any other doctors using outside the VA system. Attach that with the claim, and that just, it's new evidence that allows them to reopen it. That kind of dummy proofs it for the VA. The VA should automatically, I think personally, the VA should automatically reopen it without that. But a lot of times, I prefer to turn in new medical evidence just to make sure they reopen it. If you've never filed for it, you would file a VA form 21-526EZ. On there, you're going to write, like rhinitis, and you want to put due to Gulf War service, or burn pit exposure, depending on, on what it was. And VA is going to order you, an exam, see what the extent of the condition is. At that point, we should be able to get that service connected for. That's kind of the very 1,000-foot view of this. I really kind of wanted to go through this pretty quickly so I can open up to questions to see what kind of questions you guys have for me. I won't be able to read your questions in the chat, so if somebody types that in, if somebody could read those off for me. But I just kind of wanted to open the floor to everybody to see what kind of questions they had for me.
Okay, great, Chris. Thank you so much. So I'd like to invite everyone to ask any questions for either Secretary Smith or Chris Shearer right now. Go ahead. Nicole?
Pat was before me, if you want to go ahead and Pat.
Oh, Pat, sorry. Pat, you're muted.
Okay, there you go. Thank you, Claudia. I had a question. I know you said there was only 3 items listed, but there's, I know you're aware, there's other list of things that they think are caused by the burn pits as well. One of those for me would be breast cancer. And so if we feel like we have, that is related, how does one go about that?
Okay, so here's one thing that we're expecting some further legislation to come out soon, adding on to these presumptive conditions. They haven't released a list to me yet of what that's going to be. I'm very hopeful it's going to be a rather robust list, and will include a lot of things on there. Breast cancer, like you mentioned. I've also seen a lot of incidents of brain cancer among a lot of people I know that served around burn pits. I'd love to see that get added. There's a lot of things I'd love to see get added on there. The more, the better. Right now, here's what I would. This is going to be kind of tricky. So right now, I would still apply for it, and claim it due to Gulf War exposure. Or burn pit exposure, depending on which one you think it is. If you could relate it, you could claim it due to both if you wanted to as well. In the meantime, like I said, we're waiting for that legislation to come out. I am hopeful, breast cancer may be on there. It may not be. We're not sure yet. But I would go ahead and claim it, see what happens. Typically, if it's not presumptive, I will say this, is probably going to get denied on there. But the reason I tell people to claim it now is they'll mark that as being claimed due to burn pit / Gulf War exposure, depending on how you claim it. If it's added as a presumptive later on, you can come back in and redo it. And if we can grant it at that time, that may enable us to go back further to when you originally claimed it. Depends on how they pass the legislation. Congress is kind of tricky about that. Sometimes they'll put it as like when they release a presumptive list, they may put it as point forward, which means we can only pay you from the date they enacted that legislation. Now, what typically happens is we get a lot of lawsuits against the VA. You see this a lot with the Agent Orange conditions, and that you may have heard the word NEMR get passed around a lot. NEMR was a court case against VA, and so you had a lot of vets came in and claimed certain Agent Orange conditions that were later added to the presumptive list. Because of the NEMR court case, what VA had to do is, even though they had previously denied it and we granted it later, we had to go back in and backdate that benefit all the way back to when they originally claimed it on there. There may be something like that happens with, the burn pit and Gulf War illness legislation as well, or there may be some court cases to go with. It's hard to know what the future holds for that, but I tell people, if you think it's due to that, you claim it and then see what happens. Now, if they deny it, I also recommend that you then immediately appeal it. What I would recommend is, the more medical evidence you can gather, like let's just say you think your breast cancer is due to burn pit, for example, and you look up some of the stuff, and there's cases all over the VA. You can look up court cases where veterans were granted certain benefits just by Googling them. A lot of times there's little forms all over the place. The more evidence you can submit to kind of, I typically tell you if it's something tricky like that where it's not a presumptive, I recommend taking it to the Board of Veterans Appeals directly, not going to like what we call a decision review officer. That's kind of a higher level review. The Board of Veterans Appeals can they can be more liberal with the law than we can at our level. A VA judge may be able to look at a lot of your evidence for that, and let's just say breast cancer, isn't added to the presumptive list, but you provide this medical evidence that shows some of the chemicals and some of the things we were burning are known to cause cancers such as breast cancer. At that point, a VA judge may be able to grant it. It's a long process and it's a tough process. I'm not going to lie. Congress is supposedly working to make this a little more easy, but the wheels of government grind very slow sometimes, not as fast as I would like it to.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Taking it to a VA judge and presenting your medical evidence would be probably the best way to try to do that.
Would it be helpful to, I'm reading these articles in like military.com and some other articles elsewhere. Is it helpful to add those in the packet,
Every bit of
or do they not even
evidence
consider that?
So at the lower levels, we can't consider it as much as they can at the higher levels, like when they go to a BVA judge or a Board of Veterans Appeals judge. We kind of have to abide by certain legislation, or I should say what we call the Code of Federal Regulations and how they tell us to kind of work these claims. The judges can weigh that evidence a lot more heavily than we can. And so if they can't grant it, we'll definitely look at it, but a lot of times we're not allowed to take it into account as much as a judge can. So a judge, can weigh that a lot more heavily than we can. A lot of times, things that can't be granted at the lower level, I hear people say, well, I took it to a BVA judge and it got granted. And I tell them, well, that's because the judge can be a little more, they have a lot more flexibility with that than we do at certain levels. We don't like, I hear people say a lot of times the VA likes to deny people, and there's a time period with the VA where that was definitely true, especially if you're a Vietnam era veteran. But 80% of the people I work with here are vets. We don't get any joy out of denying anybody anything. We just have to kind of follow the rules that we're allowed, that we're told to follow, but the Code of Federal Regulations. The judges can kind of, like I said, they have a lot more leeway. They can weigh medical evidence a lot more heavily. I'd say if you get denied, if you've already been denied for breast cancer, or you at that point, if it's still within a year of your denial, I recommend filing an appeal to take it to a Board of Veterans Appeals. It's a bit of a lengthy process, but that's probably your best bet until we see what comes out with this new presumptives. And that's kind of my advice to you on how I would do it if it was my claim.
Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate
I'm sorry.
that.
Can I do one follow-up, Claudia? I'm sorry it takes so much time. But one of the things you said was, that I need to put what chemicals were burned. Okay, so I as a person.
Not so much that. When I say what chemicals were burned, like for example, like we know feces was burned in the burn pits. And inhaling feces is going to have, incinerated feces, is going to have that. If you go on the web, you can kind of go, well, what would inhaling, burn to feces? What kind of health effects are we seeing on that stuff? We know there was plastics burned. We know there was all kinds of different stuff on there. You don't have to be too specific. But there's also people have already done a lot of that work for you out there. If you go on Google, and I do a lot on some of these people when I give them advice if you go on Google and Google burn pit and breast cancer, I guarantee you somebody out there has done some legwork on it already. And and you can probably download a lot of that evidence to kind of submit with your claim.
Okay, the next person who had their hand up was Nicole.
All right. Chris, this is Nicole A. Thank you for coming. What a great birthday present. You are an amazing
friend. Happy birthday too.
So my question is I want to wrap my head around it because I am one of the lucky ones. I got put on quarters in 2004 in Iraq. I got sick breathing that stuff in. And so I'm going to have a bit easier of a road to go down because not only now is it a presumptive, but I got sick within 10 years. I got sick on base. Mm-hmm. So my understanding is if it's a presumptive, so let's say I have somebody who went to Iraq with me in 2004, and this presumptive is now already saying if somebody in Iraq in 2004 did this, he doesn't need to necessarily go through a bunch of doctor's stuff. If he already has a diagnosis for asthma, he sends through the presumptive rather than having to go through the whole process of going and getting poked and prodded by our VA doctors. He can just go through the track of through the presumptives with his medical documentation, with his supporting documentation from his friends and family and loved ones. Correct? And that's part one. Is that correct?
Okay. Let me answer part one before you go into part two. Would that be okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So typically we're going to send you for an exam on there. The reason we do that is because we need to determine, the doctors will kind of review what symptoms you have when they're doing the exam. That's what allows us to determine what percentage we're going to give you for that condition. The main thing for the presumptive is that doctor that you're being sent to is not going to have to give you a medical opinion, kind of linking that, let's just say rhinitis to basically the burn pit where they had to before. Like before you had to say, a doctor had to say, yeah, you've got rhinitis and I think it's due to the burn pit exposure. Now they don't have to say that. They just have to tell us this is his symptoms for his rhinitis, and we get that, and then we kind of go through and go, okay, he's going to be a 20% for rhinitis or something. That makes sense?
Yes. And then I guess the next part is because I've been of the population that gets denied, this idea of a congressional letter. So let's say this particular person, gets denied, but their doctor has claimed it. They have supporting documentation and there's a denial. What does the congressional letter, congressional inquiry or the congressional push do? Because I know the next step in a denial is you can always reach out to one of your legislative officials. On your end, what is your knowledge that does to help get our claim in front of a judge versus this other committee that approves or denies?
Okay, so I'll kind of explain. I'll kind of explain our claim process a little bit, and that probably hopefully answer this, and then I'll talk about the congressional inquiries. So when you file your first claim, it comes into our office. We have three departments: the predetermination department, the rating department, and the post department. Predetermination department is the one that helps you gather up all the evidence for your claim. That's the department I used to work in. So for example, when you come and file your claim, I would go in and I would order your medical records from the military. I would get your personnel records. I would order your exams and once I got those records, at that point I review everything and I order up the exams for you. I can. Typically, like for example, let's just say you're claiming like a knee condition. For me to get you an exam, I have to show some evidence you had treatment in service, for that knee, and then I kind of tab that evidence for the doctor to review, order you an exam. If you're claiming something that's presumptive, like let's just say I go through your personnel records, I say, okay, I can put, Nicole in Iraq. She's got a diagnosis of, rhinitis. I just need to order a Gulf War exam for her and have the examiner, determine her symptoms of rhinitis. And then once we get all that information back in, it goes to the rating department who kind of makes the decision on what they're granting and denying. Then it goes from them to the post department. The post department is the ones who they basically look at your claim and go, okay, the VA granted this, 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 and this. Let me put that in the letter to the vet. They're going to be, 50% service connected. I'm going to set the payments for them. And then they mail out the letter telling you kind of what the VA decides. If things are denied, let's just say you do a congressional inquiry on why they were denied. What'll happen is it goes to our congressional rep, who happens to be named Barry here. Barry looks up and kind of responds back to the congressional inquiry saying, okay, this is why this was denied. This is why this was. They're pretty much going to give them the same information they gave you in that notification letter. If something is denied and you feel it was wrongly denied, you have kind of two options on what you can do on there. You can, if you have some additional medical evidence, maybe you didn't submit the first time that you think may help support your case. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of mine personally. Okay, so the military lost like 2/3 of my medical records. So most of my treatment was not in my medical records. I didn't know this at the time I filed my claim. So when I got my claim back, everything was denied except for one thing. And I was like, I don't understand. They said there's no treatment, in service for any of this stuff. I got a copy of my medical records from the VA filing a FOIA request. Because even though I work for VA, I still have to follow those procedures as well. I got my medical records and I said, oh my God, there's no treatment in there for it. So what I did is I pulled together some other evidence I had, and I came back in and reopened my claim. And that you can do that by filing a VA form 20-0995. And I submitted that medical evidence with it, and then it kind of pushed it forward. And but some things were still denied because I didn't have enough outside medical evidence to support all the injuries that I had. And so then what I did is I filed a 20-0996, and that's basically taking it up to what we call a decision review officer. It's kind of an appeal. It's a lower level appeal. Decision review officers have a little more leeway on what they can grant. So I had a kind of an informal hearing with the decision review officer. Unfortunately, I gave my testimony on what had happened. Unfortunately, I did, it wasn't enough to get it granted at that level. Then I came back in and filed an appeal to the Board of Veterans Appeals on a VA form 10182. Waited around for a bit. Those appeals take a while. And then I went in front of a Board of Veterans Appeal judge, kind of told him what had happened to me, showed him that, hey, by the way, look, my medical records are missing. There's just huge gaps in them, where they're missing. And this is kind of what happened to me. I submitted some, buddy statements for people I served with. And then the judge kind of weighed all that evidence and got me some new examinations. At the end of the day, a lot of what I claimed was granted, enough that I was satisfied with it. Congressional inquiries aren't really going to help you get anything granted for the most part. There's some exceptions to that, but what they'll really do is they'll have somebody take a look at your case. As with anything else, humans making decisions sometimes make mistakes. I know, Mrs. Smith's on the call with us. One of her VSOs and I just recently found a claim for a veteran that was misprocessed, where we were able to grant something that was missed back 20 years for a total of like $600,000 to a veteran. It was just an error of omission. People make those sometimes, and what'll happen is if you file a congressional inquiry, somebody else goes back through and reviews that case to make sure they did everything correctly. And if they did, at that point, we'll just kind of report that back to the congressperson and says, hey, this is what we did. Everything in here is correct. And they'll just kind of tell you, VA, investigated it. Everything was correct. If you have any further questions, let us know. If we
Hey,
find
Chris?
an error,
Chris, I
Yes.
don't mean to be rude, but we've
Sure.
got several other speakers. And what I'd really like to do is ask you to stay on. And Donna and Molly and Patty all have questions. I'd like to give our
Okay.
other speakers an opportunity to present.
No problem. I can
in
definitely
respect
do
to their
that.
time. And Chris, I've also put your contact information in the chat. And if there's anything else you would like to add, please do so. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Donna Tourneau with the Military Veterans Advocacy Group, which is a national group. Donna, take it away.
Oh, thank you very much. Can you see me and hear me okay? Okay, great. I'm not real good at this stuff, so let me know if anything goes awry. My name is Donna Tourneau, and I'm the director for Panama Veterans. I am not a veteran. I am not an attorney. I am not a CSO or VSO rather. But I am on the board of the Military Veterans Advocacy, and we advocate for all groups that were exposed to toxins. I'm sitting here, thanks to Zoom, in front of a picture of Fort Sherman, Panama Canal Zone. And next to me, too bad Chris probably can't see my picture, but there is Agent Orange barrels all along in front of the old dilapidated quarters at Fort Sherman. These were found in April of 2020 by one of our veterans who went down there after we had seen pictures of them. Someone was going through taking pictures of the old quarters and talking about how dilapidated they were. And we happened to see the orange stripe on the barrels. And they're all sitting in front of the quarters because they don't want anyone going in there. And there's signs that say peligroso for danger. By the way, I was stationed or my husband was stationed at White Sands Missile Range. So we were in New Mexico for 3 years and loved it there. I'm going to show you our website and what we're doing. We litigate, legislate, educate for veterans. And let me go home first. I'm sorry. I don't think I shared my hold on a second. I didn't do that right. Got to share my screen first. There we go. All right. Can you see the Military Veterans Advocacy website? Yay. Good job. Okay. So there's a lot going on, and we're working on our website as well. We meet with our members by separate Facebook pages. This is about us. We legislate, educate, litigate. Before COVID, I had tickets to DC in my hand when everything was canceled. Normally we go around the nation and we meet with our veterans and VSOs and attorneys. John Wells is our commander and our chairman of the board. He is also an attorney, and he actually is the person who won for the Blue Water Navy. If you go under projects here, you can see where we are on all of our different sections that we're working with right now. We also work with many others. We work with the submariners, the burn pits, et cetera. We're looking for other directors for other sections. I got involved because in 2015, I saw a little blurb that Agent Orange might have been in Panama. And my husband, he was very, very sick. And we lived there for 3 years. We saw spraying every single day. We were out here at Fort Sherman. Fort Sherman is where they trained the Vietnam veterans before they went to Vietnam. Also, we trained people from all over the world at Fort Sherman. I found records, and if you go to Vets of Panama here, you can see the research. And Chris, you might be very interested in looking at all the research for Panama. I have 152 pages of exports, exporting Agent Orange 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T, first started in 1958. And that was the very first year that 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T were combined and shipped anywhere. And on the records, I'll show them in a second, but you might want to go through there. It was shipped to Vietnam, Panama, Thailand in 1958. And the BVA, they didn't even know. They said that purple was started shipping in 62. So this was purple that went in 58 as well. I met Dr. Wayne Dorenchuk. He was the scientist that found it in Vietnam, found the dioxin. And he gave his opinion on my research, and I wrote a book about it called Travels of Orange and Other Toxins. It's on Amazon. And now I've gotten the attention of some other researchers, and I wanted to open this document up. Dr. Olson from Illinois, let me see if it will open. Here we go. He has written 140 different articles on Agent Orange, and he read my book, and I didn't even know it, but I talked about Agent Blue was also in Panama. Gatun Lake was a lake that was created in 1914 to connect the two oceans for the canal. And Gatun Lake was around where all the bases are. Here's Fort Sherman, where I'm sitting in front of. And we lived at Fort Davis, which was right here. It's an Amazonian jungle. The jungle grew overnight, and they sprayed every day to keep it under control. In Gatun Lake, they actually use herbicides, and I have a picture of that as well. A beautiful, beautiful place, but a very toxic place. They used everything under the sun there. This article here is Sprayed and Betrayed document I put together. I went to a Reno convention last month and met with VA directors, state directors, to give them this information. They avoided us like the plague because they don't want to know about Panama. They know about Panama. They have to know about Panama. These exports have existed for 60 years, but no one's found them apparently, and I'm just shocked. I found them in about 2 weeks of just Googling libraries at Happy Trust Library. This is a picture from the Panama Canal paper that was published in Panama when we were there, and we didn't pay any attention to it. I mean, they were spraying herbicides and pesticides in all around us. We just, it was just a normal thing. We didn't really know that it was anything toxic. But here's a picture of them spraying herbicides in Gatun Lake in 1968. We have records from Dietrich that said that they shipped 200 barrels of Agent Orange to Panama in 68. It was no big deal because they shipped it there all the time. And now we found barrels sitting here in 2020. We've given all this information to the VA for years and years. My husband's case has been in the system for 7 years. He's been denied twice, and we're waiting the third time now. It's supposedly in front of a judge for 2 years. This is 1964, September. This is what the shipment records look like. And let me make it a little bit bigger, but there are 152 pages of shipping records. And so 82080, the herbicides 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T, you can see Panama this month got 30,206 pounds. And Vietnam got the same stuff, 4,400 pounds. Our trouble is the VA tells us it was never in Panama, and on the same darn document, it's shown shipped to Vietnam and to Panama. I have records from the Bureau of the Census. They say that it all went on the Army Navy vessels, and they didn't keep track of it, but they kept track of the exports because someone had to pay for it. Here's a report by the DOD to Congress. They had to report to the Senate every year about what they were buying. And in this report, it says right there, 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T. It even gives us the actual number from the shipment records, the exports that I found. And we've given them, like I said, to the VA, and they just deny us. This is a pesticide review report. This was put out by the DOD. and the USDA, the DOI, Department of Interior. They kept track of all the production of the chemicals for the whole nation. They kept track of the shipments. It says right here that these figures include the military shipments to Vietnam. So even though they tell us that it wasn't, we didn't write it down, we have the records. And so we want the same as the Vietnam veterans get. We also have diseases. My husband lives without a pancreas every day. The doctor said there's only a handful of people in the whole world that needed the surgery that he needed. Here's Title 22. We got a letter from the DOD. I went and talked to Senator Tester's office in 2018. I said, hey, what about Panama? We have veterans, thousands of them that have the same diseases. I know veterans who had stillborn children in the 70s without a head, and they said they didn't have time for us. And the DOD wrote back and said that they would not have used anything on base that wasn't approved by the USDA. And here we have in Title 22, it said that the export and import licensing controls do not apply to shipments between the United States, US possessions, and the Canal Zone. So this is the same truth for Okinawa, Thailand, Panama, and Guam. And so we're fighting for all the veterans. I don't know if you know who Dr. Alvin Young is, but Dr. Alvin Young has written many reports about all of these areas that we're fighting for. It's been 60 years and they still just deny us. And for Thailand, they said, well, yeah, the herbicides were there, but they weren't the ones that could harm you. There's no difference. There's actually absolutely no difference. And Alvin Young says here in his 1978 report, when he was fighting against the Vietnam veterans, he lists the herbicides, orange, pink, green, and he says that they come from the pesticide review, and the pesticide review I just showed you says it comes from the exports from the Census Bureau, from the Commerce Department. I went through, I didn't know what the hell Agent Orange was when I first started my research. And so I went through all of everything that I could get my hands on how it was made, what the chemicals consisted of, met with experts. I have memos, I have cablegrams during the war that says that they had two different items, but they were both the same. From General Banks that said, no, that cablegram's not right, it's the same thing, and that the ecological effect would not be any different based on the two different brands, the commercial and tactical, which is what they tell us, that there's this commercial brand that could not have hurt you, and there's a tactical brand that we use in war. They use the commercial brand in war tactically. There it is in the Federal Supply Catalog. You can purchase Agent Orange, any federal facility, and that's how they got it. They called up the Pesticide Review Board and they said, hey, we're going to need some 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T to kill all these weeds in Panama, and they ship it, and they shipped it through the State Department, through the Commerce Department. Here we have the same number going to Vietnam. It's the exact same thing, and it's on the same report. So in 1963, real quick, I know I don't have a lot of time here, but this is really important. There was a government entomologist, you may have heard of her. Her name is Rachel Carson. She wrote a book called Silent Spring. And she noticed that every time the government sprayed along the streams and the lakes, fish and bees were dying by the millions, and the animals too. They thought she was a kook. And so President Kennedy in 1962 said, well, let's take a look at that. They invited her to Congress. She came to Congress, and the President Kennedy started a presidential advisory committee to study all the persistent pesticides. This is not the only one they studied. They studied DDT, chloridane, and many, many others that they use routinely on bases and all over the world. And they even said that this 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T was used domestically and abroad, and it's produced commercially. This is from the president's report. The president was the head of the Pesticide Review Board. Here under military uses of 2,4,5-T, they say the phrase military uses refers to the employment of 2,4,5-T as a defoliant in operations, period. There's no difference in the two different types of commercial versus tactical. In 1978, they had a hearing. This is in front of Veterans Affairs and Medical Facilities and Benefits. And they said that Agent Orange was a mixture of 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T, the same exact thing that is on the exports to Panama. And yet they say, no, could not have harmed us. They
Donna?
said, pardon,
Hi, Donna.
yeah,
I'd just like to say, in the interest of time,
sure.
I am so impressed with the research you have done and the results. And I think there's so much more that we need to do to work together. So I'd like to give you a minute to wrap up. And then if you'd stay, we could take questions a little later. And I'd like to introduce a couple of other folks. Okay?
Got it. How do I stop sharing? Stop share. There you go. Got it.
So we're going to work with you and we're going to do a little more offline. But everybody, if you've got any questions for Donna, either please put them in the chat or stay a little bit later. I'd also like to recognize Earl James, who is here. He is a Panama Canal veteran and a member of our caucus, and he's the one who brought all this to our attention. Earl, thank you so much for doing that and for joining us today. And now I'd like to ask Jesse and Maria Baca, actually it's Senior Master Sergeant, New Mexico Air National Guard, to share what's going on with you for a couple of minutes, okay?
Sorry, I was unmuting us. Thank you for having us.
No
I'm going to take
problem.
the background filter off. Sorry, there. Anyways, hi everyone. Thank you for having us. We really do appreciate it. We are out of town, so we're doing the best that we can do. But anyways, as you know that we flooded the chat messages with an array of links regarding burn pits. My husband is retired Senior Master Sergeant Jesse J. Baca. He retired for the New Mexico Air National Guard with 37 years of duty with them, and served 2 tours of duty in Iraq, in Balad. And now we even have a granddaughter in the Navy, active duty Navy. But anyways, the burn pits, like I said, we sent you all a bunch of links that will tell you all about the burn pits. There's some things like Claudia knows. Thank you, Claudia, for having us. And thank you, Brian, for sharing with us. State Auditor Brian Colon, thank you for sharing with us about this. I had the pleasure of meeting the Cabinet Secretary, Sonia, at baggage claim in Virginia a few weeks ago. We were sitting next to each other, and lo and behold, we ended up being same city.
Small world. We were in Norfolk at the same time. And
Yes.
you know, when I saw the name, I'm like, are you kidding me? I just saw her a few weeks ago. So it's good to see you again and to make this reconnection. And I'm sure we're going to work together. I hope you had a good visit with your grandbaby too.
We did.
Good.
But anyways, so I've also shared a film documentary that my husband is featured in, and it's called Delay, Deny, Hope You Die. It is a motto that many veterans see every single day of their lives dealing with the VA. And there's some people that maybe never have to deal with things like this with the VA. But for the most part, this is what we deal with the VA. I would suggest that all of you watch the documentary about the burn pits. I know that New Mexico State Auditor Brian Colon could tell you many things about it. He was in attendance when we presented it. My husband and I, on Veterans Day of a couple of years ago when it was released, we hosted a huge event at the Hubble House showing all this. In the last 10 years, my husband and I have done a lot of advocating for veterans. We have helped many veterans get through the VA. There's many things we could tell you about. We don't want to take up much of your time right now, but we are always ready to hear you all. We're ready to chat with you all. And if you'd like to get a hold of us, please do. Our number is 505-918-6021. And we're happy to talk to any one of you. Once you read all the articles, we got through this whole thing by the grace of God, for one. We still struggle every day. My husband is terminally ill because of burn pits. We didn't have, as they call, presumptive illnesses that are showing up now. We had to prove it every single day. We had to prove everything that was happening to my husband. And now with all of that, we are able to help thousands of veterans. And right now in the state of New Mexico alone, we have over 7,000 veterans that served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And a lot of them, more than probably 75% of them, are sick. A lot of them they go to private doctors because the VA has pushed them from front to back everywhere. That it's incredible of what they've done to them, including my husband. We do go outside the VA. My husband's pulmonologists are in Nashville, Tennessee, and we fly to Nashville every 3 months, sometimes every 6 months. For the most part, it's every 3 months. We fly to Nashville to see his pulmonologist. Dr. Robert Miller is the one who found the illnesses that were happening to all of our veterans. He's the one who discovered today's new Agent Orange for Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. So it is the new Agent Orange of today. So I don't, I chewed Claudia's ear the other night when she called, me, poor thing. But I chewed her ear, and I've told her so much, and I know I'm sure she'll share it with you and stuff. Like I said, I don't want to keep on this with everybody on here, because I know there's a few other people that want to speak. But like I said, we fought the VA since 2008, his last tour of duty. We started. My husband's illness has started since 2006, that we noticed more and more and more. We fought the VA to the point that our home went into foreclosure 3 different times because I was willing to lose everything to find the help that he needed to fight for him. I fought for him. And we fought for each other. The thing about it is that we were going to seek and find the medical care that he deserved, and we pay for it. But, and now we have a lot of resources that will fly us to Nashville, that will, just doctors galore. We have Dr. Robert Miller's number programmed into our phone anytime, day or night, especially now with the COVID that hit. Jesse did get COVID. And if it wasn't for Dr. Miller, I don't know what could have happened to him through all this, because he knew what to start doing. But Dr. Robert Miller is the one who discovered it. He started with 45 active duty Army from Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The pulmonologist there could not figure out what was going on with them, called Dr. Robert Miller at Vanderbilt Regional Medical Center, University Medical Center, and got him down there and got all those veterans down there. And including my husband, he had to go through an open lung biopsy to figure out what was going on. And lo and behold, he does suffer from constrictive bronchiolitis, not bronchitis. Very different, very different. And so the pulmonologist,
Maria?
Yes.
I want to thank you so much
You're welcome.
for sharing what's going on, but I want to recognize what you and the Senior Master Sergeant have done in working with Senator Tom Udall in getting the National Registry up and running. Everyone here really needs to give a round of applause because you can see how tenacious you have to be, how patient, and you dedicate your life to this. So thank you so much. And I'd really like to also acknowledge our state auditor, Brian Colon, who's also a military family member and a caucus member, for bringing them to my attention. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And I know that the last thing I'm going to say is that I know that somebody shared a video about on Apple TV with Jon Stewart. I'm not going to say that everything that's on there is what we agree with, but it's like anything else. It's not everything we agree with, right? But I would say that before you go and watch that, you should watch Delay, Deny, Hope You Die, and you'll understand what every veteran has gone through because of serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. And Stefan will be happy to answer anything else. But we're going to go ahead. I'm going to cut it off right here. Oh, Jesse, because Jesse wants to say something. So if not, like any other wife, we want to keep talking. But anyways, so there's my husband. And thank you again, Claudia. Nice talking to you again, Sonia, and seeing you. And we hope to meet with you all soon.
Thank you, Maria.
Hello, everyone. Well, real quick, I can give you a problem that a lot of veterans go through and the obstacles that they endure. Basically, a veteran coming off of the street he's thinking about the VA, he's thinking about making a claim. This is the first thing they run into. You go to the VA and you ask for help. Well, the first thing they check for is eligibility. And eligibility goes on your income. That's the very first step. Most people or most veterans that I run into, they're either working or they're retired or something in between, so they don't qualify. That's the first problem. The second problem is they go to their civilian medical doctors, they talk to them about burn pits and anything to do with Southwest region. They don't have a clue of what they're talking about. So they're just shooting in the dark. You can tell them the array of symptoms that you have, and they still don't have a clue. I ran into that in Albuquerque prior to going to Nashville. That's why that hill that we climbed was so tall. And that still exists today because other veterans, they've tried different methods, they've gone to different people, and unfortunately, there's a lot of bad information out there. So they get denied once, twice, 3 times. I've talked to veterans that have been denied 7 times. And I ask them, what have you done? And basically they've shot all the way around the target and they can't hit it. So I tell them to back up a little bit. You need to do these couple of steps, and it seems to work out, but this is a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road. If the guy or if the person that is trying this, they give up. They feel bad, they don't feel good. I'm lucky. I have a spouse who's extremely aggressive and won't let go. Other people don't have that, or they're by themselves, and that's the sad part. And those are the ones that fall through the cracks. And then when you have bad information out there, it makes it even worse. It makes it hard on Chris. I know it makes it hard on the secretary because you're trying to navigate this huge mountain and this obstacle. And if you have bad information, it's never going to get done. Those are the problems that I've witnessed and that I've seen and that I ran into myself. And when we were starting this problem real quickly, my issues really got real bad in 2008 and 2009. And yeah, we seeked. And just by social media, I was referred to Denver, Colorado, National Jewish Medical Center. Tried to go to the VA, was turned down because I was working, and he said, no, you make too much money, you can't be here. Oh, okay. So I'm real green. I didn't know where to turn. And I was seeing several doctors in Albuquerque. They didn't have a clue. They were treating me for asthma. And no, you must have had this as a child. I said, if I did, I would have not qualified to be in the service. So it was just beating our head against the wall. So we went to National Jewish through social media by accident. We went up there and we met Dr. Cecil Rose. And they gave me an array of tests the first day. They had an idea of what was going on. The second day, they verified it. They said I had chemically induced asthma. And the doctor, Cecil Rose, said, I'm not the expert. The expert is Dr. Robert Miller in Nashville. So we tightened our bootstraps and pretty much scraped up all the pennies. And we went over there. I met him. He told us his background, what he felt that I had, and he made the diagnosis. But remember, the VA still did not recognize this because they didn't have any proof. And the proof falls on the veteran. You have to prove what's going on. How do you get service connected? You have to have proof. Well, being in theater, almost everybody got sick. My whole shop got sick. And we called it the Iraqi crud. It was just, but we had bigger things to worry about. And so we kind of pushed it to the side, continued our job, finished our mission, and came home. Well, lo and behold, how do you prove this? So there's that other obstacle of trying to get paperwork to make you service connected. Those are the obstacles, and those are most of the obstacles that people run into now, especially with a guardsman or a reservist, because their time out there is very limited. They go out there, they let's say they do 60, 90, 120 days. When they come back to the United States, they revert to a different status. They're now civilians again. Well, how do you prove that you got sick in that little tiny dot and not elsewhere? So now you have another obstacle. And those are the issues that we run into. On an active duty service person, yeah, you're in for 4 years. Hopefully, if it happened right in the middle, you got a lot of leeway both back and forth. For the other people, that's not the case. Or if your symptoms come later. Some people didn't feel it right away, and some did. So see, those are the issues that we face. If somehow, when we did the registry, yeah, they asked a lot of questions. A lot of them were real good. A lot of them were very broad, very generalized, and that's fine. But how do you narrow it down to eliminate all this blurry vision and make it a lot clearer? If you can address those problems, I think you will have a lot of good results. And
Jesse?
Yes.
I'd like to just say that I need to move along, but
okay.
You know what it takes to get through this, and you're bringing this to the right people's attention. And you've got about 30 of us here who would very much like to continue to help. And I know that our state auditor, Brian Colon, is one of them, but all of us in the caucus. So this isn't the last time we're going to get together, but I'd like to continue to work. And I thank you for your service. And that's such a valuable point about the Guard, because a National Guard service is completely different, but the diseases and the exposure and the issues with the VA or medical help are not. So
Absolutely.
we need to do better. Thank you so much, sir. And I'd like to turn to Paul Saltner now. And please tell us a little bit about COVID-19 Delta, and especially how it relates to our veterans who have diseases based on their exposure to particulate matter. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. So the first thing I'm going to do is I just put my contact information in the chat. So those of you who want more information that I'm going to share right now, you can reach me through email, and we'll be able to talk about that. So. Okay, can you see my screen? Can everyone see? Yeah? Okay. So I've been asked to talk about what is the Delta variant, because everybody knows about it and people are kind of scared about it. So first, let me introduce myself. I'm a PhD in genetics, and I'm the chief scientific officer in a biotechnology company called Equiseq. So when COVID started, I was at home a lot. I had a chance to read the primary literature. I've stayed very caught up on COVID, and I'm also in a phase 3 clinical trial for the Novavax vaccine, which has not yet received approval. So I've also been a participant as a volunteer in some of the research. So what's Delta? So Delta is a strain of what's called SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus that causes COVID-19. And it has mutations that make it different from the reference strain. So when people say strain, everyone thinks of influenza. Influenza strains are extremely different from each other because influenza has a different kind of genome. It swaps segments, and different flu strains are very, very different from each other. And different strains of SARS-CoV-2 are not very different from each other. So that's the first thing to say. So there are two kinds of things that concern us when we're looking at a new strain, two kinds of differences that matter. One is transmissibility, and the other is whether the virus evades your prior immune response. And we're going to talk about both of those. So transmissibility, I'll give you a little bit of technical stuff here. There's a number called R0, which is the number of people the average infected person will infect. And this applies across all different viruses. So let me explain that in a moment. So the range that we know, everyone knows about influenza. Influenza has an R0 of 1.9. So an R0 of below 1 doesn't cause an epidemic. So flu is just infectious enough to keep spreading and cause epidemics. I don't want to diminish influenza because the 1918 influenza pandemic killed 50 million people worldwide. So flu can be very dangerous, and I don't want to diminish the hazard. Measles at the high end has an R0 of 18. So the average person in an unvaccinated population with measles will infect 18 other people. That's about the worst. So in between there is chickenpox, which has an R0 of 10. The original SARS-CoV-2 had an R0 of 2.5 or less. So the average person infected a couple of other people, but you saw the epidemic took off. That strain was displaced in the United States very quickly by a strain that originated in Europe that's now called Alpha. The Alpha variant was slightly more transmissible, but entirely displaced the prior variant over the course of 5 or 6 months. What Delta is, Delta has an R0 of 6.5, which is a lot higher. So it is very much more infectious than the original strain or the Alpha variant. And in the course of a month, it entirely displaced all the other strains in the United States. So if you're infected with SARS-CoV-2 now and you have COVID-19, you are infected with the Delta strain. So the other thing the R0 means is what percentage of the population has to be vaccinated in order to stop the pandemic. And that's derived from R0 as well. So with the original strain or the Alpha variant, if we got to about 65% vaccination, and many communities have achieved that, the epidemic would stop. And unfortunately, with the Delta variant, we're going to have to go to 85% vaccination or over. It doesn't look like we'll ever be able to achieve that in the climate in the United States right now. So it means that we will not be able to stop the pandemic through vaccination and natural immunity because people are not cooperating. Okay, so how do you derive an immune response against SARS-CoV-2 if you're not infected? So all vaccines in the United States that are currently authorized immunize with the spike protein, whether that's DNA, RNA, or protein. You are immunized with what's called the spike protein. So Alpha and Delta strains of SARS-CoV-2 have very minor changes to the spike protein. And your immune system has about 20 or so different targets on the spike protein that it uses. So when you're vaccinated, you make a collection of immune responses to lots of different positions on the spike protein. So a slight change from the Delta or Alpha variant at one of those sites means you still have lots of other sites to be immune to. So in general, the current vaccines do work against Alpha and Delta. All of the current vaccines are developed against the reference strain, and they are all effective against Alpha and Delta. And we know that not only from laboratory studies, but by who's turning up in hospitals with COVID-19. So what's the spike protein? On the very left side of the picture, you see an electron micrograph of what SARS-CoV-2 looks like, and you see it has a halo around it of protein molecules, and it's a crown or corona, so it's kind of poetically named a coronavirus. The middle is a cartoon of what coronavirus would look like if you could see it at that resolution. And on the right side is a 3D model of what the spike protein looks like. And this kind of model is useful in figuring out changes that we see in the spike protein. Are they likely to affect infectivity or the immune response? So that's the kind of stuff that people work with who work on this. So it comes down to practical advice. What should you do right now? If you're not vaccinated, get vaccinated with the first available vaccine, any vaccine, and tell your family and friends to get vaccinated as well with any vaccine that they are offered. If you're offered a booster, and I know some of you have already received boosters, get the booster. The FDA is now saying you can mix and match. So if you got Johnson & Johnson, you get Pfizer as the booster. Just get the booster as soon as you're offered the booster. Despite being vaccinated and boosted, wear a mask anyway, because one of the most dangerous things about COVID-19 is there are asymptomatic carriers, people who are infectious, who can infect other people that have no symptoms. And they're walking around, having dinner with, or going to Balloon Fiesta or whatever they're doing. And you really don't want to be exposed to those people, and you don't want to be one of those people. So wear a mask anyway. If you are infected and you're starting to develop symptoms, you should seek treatment right away. There are a couple of treatments that are effective if they're given immediately, one of which is monoclonal antibodies, and those have been around for a little while. The FDA just approved an antiviral drug, which has been repurposed, called Molnupiravir, and it looks like it is effective. It is so effective, the clinical trial was halted because there was such a difference between placebo and control. So it doesn't do you any good if you wait until you're really bad off and then go to the hospital. As if you have symptoms that might be COVID-19, seek treatment right away. Early treatment with either of these interventions will be great. And the worst part of the pandemic right now is there's an epidemic of misinformation and disinformation. So you should seek the best information you can get. The CDC is great. The New York Times isn't bad for popular press covering scientific matters. There are all kinds of other sources of information that I could name, which are not credible, and don't get your information from there. Or if you did, please check it against a credible source of information. So to speak specifically about veterans affairs, I know that some of you have weakened immune systems from one thing or another that you're exposed to in your service. We can't talk about this today without acknowledging the passage of Colin Powell, and he was vaccinated but died of COVID-19. The primary reason for that is he had multiple myeloma, which is a cancer that affects the immune response. So only about a third of people with multiple myeloma, if they're vaccinated, have no immune response at all to the vaccine. So it's quite possible that he had no immune response whatsoever to the vaccine, or that it was weakened. So if you do have a weakened immune response, please take every precaution you can, get the boosters when you can, wear a mask, and stay away from crowds indoors. And I will stop sharing with that. And my contact's in the chat. So if you have any additional questions about that, or if we have time for questions now, I've tried to keep it as simple as possible. I could get as technical as anybody wants to be.
Thank you so much, Paul. We have one more guest speaker. And then, and that's only going to be about 5 minutes. We're really looking forward to hearing what Zach Quintero has been doing with veterans. And then we're going to have all the questions at the end. Okay. And Zach, you're up.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. This is Zachary Quintero. Hello, everybody. Hello, fellow Democrats. Thank you for a brief moment of time to speak with you all tonight. My name is Zachary Quintero. I just finished serving as the Federal Ombudsman for New Mexico. That means it's a long, fancy word for serving as an investigator and advocate on behalf of families, veterans, and our ADA community. I investigated abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation from both public and private actors. I just wanted to give you an update and share with you just the overall searches and focus that I've seen throughout not just the pandemic, but the path going forward, and also what overlaps with the state auditor's office. When the pandemic hit, the first thing that the governor had made clear was that we were going to be focusing on the most vulnerable populations and getting them vaccinated, keeping them safe, and making sure they had access to dignity and justice. And that was part of the mandate that was set forward. So I was paired with Major General Clark, who ran Walter Reed with the Alternative Care Sites and Emergency Response Team. Our direct goal was to make sure that we got emergency support from the federal government on the ground to rural hospitals, to veterans, to folks that needed that immediate support in areas that normally wouldn't get immediate relief. And I want to say that that follow-up was a critical thing for our state when it comes to building that vaccine infrastructure. So that's one thing that I've seen throughout the pandemic. The second thing is, that's a rallying cry, Democrats. We need to support our governor, and we need to push this and talk about how we led the rest of the country in not only getting vaccinated quickly, but ethically pulling together the resources to make sure no community was left behind. The second part that I saw was, an issue that the state auditor had identified early on, and that was the issue of conservatorships and guardianships. Auditor Colon had paired together with Justice Shannon Bacon and saw a lot of cases that involved predatory financial agreements where people were trying to take away not only public benefits, but siphon away money continually month after month after month from our veterans, from our most vulnerable communities. And this is what motivated me in a large part to run for state auditor, actually. That's the only plug I'll make, Madam Chair, on that point, because I want to talk about the core of that. My grandfather, the World War II veteran, he received a very difficult time on his reentry back to the United States and trying to be acclimated back to civilian life. And unfortunately, his condition deteriorated very quickly. And we saw him go through some of the most horrific treatment anybody could survive. And that was in long-term care facilities. And that was from third-party groups that were managing his conservatorship and guardianship. And had we had somebody fighting in our corner, had we had somebody connected that knew the system and knew the process, like the subject matter experts today, or our great secretary today here, it would have been a different result. And that's something that I want to be able to make a central focus. So I want to just share those two quick updates that we did a great job for the vaccine infrastructure. Second is the investigations are still ongoing for abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation for our ADA community, for our seniors, for our veterans. Please report something if you see something, not only to the VA, but also to the Ombudsman Office and the Aging and Long-Term Services Department, as well as the state auditor, because we do have a new referral system that Auditor Colon, Attorney General Hector Balderas, and myself paired together with the governor's office to get faster referrals for criminal neglect, abuse, and financial exploitation. So that's just the quick update I wanted to provide. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, everybody. My name is Zachary Quintero, running for state auditor, hoping to earn your trust and support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zach. I really appreciate that. I know that you've been working very hard. We've got such a wonderful team, and I love it that you're throwing yourself into another campaign because we're not done. We've got a lot of work to do. So I would like to introduce Earl James briefly, and then we're going to go to questions. Earl, are you here?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Claudia, I want to thank you and Sue first for bringing these issues to the table, and specifically for my personal issue with the Panama Canal Recognition Act of 2021. I'm in the early stages of Parkinson's disease, which is related, of course, to these toxins. Of course, I'm not covered benefits because the canal, some veterans are not considered presumptive. So if everyone here could contact your representative, ask them to co-sponsor 5026 Panama Canal bill. I'm working on that with my representative and spreading the word in other states through my family and friends also. We need to get that moving. And then I want to make a shout out to Donna. I don't know if she's still with us or not. She's done, as you know, amazing work that she showed. And, she's an incredible soldier of her own, And so I'm happy to make the connection between Donna and this Vets Caucus, and maybe we can keep working together on these issues. So thank you very much. And remember, 5026 Panama Canal Act.
Thank you so much, Earl. And yeah, I encourage everybody, reach out to your representatives. This is important stuff. We've also got this on our website, and maybe Sandy will throw that up where people can take a look at the specific bills. They were in the last newsletter. Thank you so much, Earl. So who's got a question? Spike, your hand was up earlier. Still have a question?
Chris from the VA has a lot of comments. I'd like to push out too when I have a second, because I've got a bunch of stuff I'd like to tell people. Because Earl hit the nail on the head. You got to push stuff through Congress.
Yeah, we do. Let's go to Rebecca Hampton. Your hand's up, ma'am.
Hello. Hi. My name's Anna Lee. She goes by Bex, actually. And yeah, we're very excited to be here with you all. We really enjoyed learning more about the types of issues that veterans face. We are both affordable housing advocates in Albuquerque, and we're currently working on a campaign called Stop the Stadium. It is a bond issue in the election. And we really feel like that money could definitely be spent in better places, especially for affordable housing. And we know that that's an issue that a lot of our veterans face. And so we definitely wanted to connect with you all, offer our contact information, and just let you know a little bit about what we're doing. Bex, I don't know if you want to add a few things.
And I'd just like to interrupt. We're really looking for questions for our guest speakers this evening, because a lot of them need to sign off. So thank you so much for joining us, but please just put information in the chat and we'll push it out, okay? Thank you. Kathy Duffy, you have your hand up.
Well, okay. Hi. So my first question would be, how do I get that little cute hand up that everybody else does? I don't know how to do that. But my question is, Jesse kind of talked about this a second. He said, sometimes you don't get these benefits because you're working and you make too much money. One of the questions would be, why would the suffering that you're going through because you have some sort of a disease from being a military person, why would money have an issue? If it just seems you should have some compensation for all the pain that you receive due to an illness. And then the other thing is, I've heard a lot about Agent Orange and burn pits, but my husband was a firefighter during the Vietnam War when he was stationed in Korea, and he was exposed to asbestos. But I don't hear anyone talking or speaking about asbestos. So I guess I need to know which direction I need to go for that, because he's since deceased, and I still have an appeal in, because I want to honor him for what he felt was due. And I guess I want to see it to the end, because that's what he would have done.
That's certainly something, Ms. Duffy, that our agency can help you with. I did put the information into the chat, but let me just give you my direct email. And why don't you just reach out to me, and then I can put you in touch with
and I did take notes from the chat. I did take notes, so maybe I already have.
All right, then. Well,
I appreciate that very, very much.
Yeah, we can do that. And Claudia, I hate to be preemptive, but I need to get prepared for a 7 o'clock Zoom. So, so let me just say this, that one of the things that I need for everybody to remember about the Department of Veteran Services is we are first and foremost an advocacy agency. We are a state advocacy agency. That means that I'm expected to go and fight for you, even against the VA. Let me be very clear about that. I serve the veterans of New Mexico, the state of New Mexico. And if there are problems or challenges going on with the Veteran Affairs Agency, the benefits or whatever, that's what our office is for. I don't know if that's ever been clear, But it was clear to me when Governor Lujan Grisham appointed me to this position that we are a state agency and we got one job, and that is to serve our veterans and their families. And I say that ad nauseum for my team. And they know I mean business when it comes to that. So make sure, I'm not saying that you can't work with the VA, but start with us. You know, we are really trying to position ourselves, and in a lot of cases, reposition ourselves. Number one, to let people know that we exist, because we're finding out a lot of veterans don't even know that we exist and that we are here to help them with their services. And lastly, we want to keep veterans in the state. We want to do everything we can to keep veterans in this beautiful state. And it just breaks my heart when I see that the numbers are trending in a different direction in the way they need to be trending. So please reach out to my office, Claudia, Nicole, the good senator here, Senator Pope, they have my information. You can tell I'm not shy. You know, I talk to people in the airport. You heard Ms. Bach. You know, so please reach out to us, let me know what we can do to help. I hope I am invited back, because I've been taking copious notes here. And the last thing I want to say is that you have my personal promise that we are going to organize ourselves in a way so that we can do better with this. And I'm not sure how that is yet, because I need to get all the players in the room on the Zoom or around the table safely, you know, to discuss the steps that we need to do, because we can't be reactive with this. We heard Mr. Baca say all of the trials and tribulations that he's gone through. I'm a Desert Storm vet, and I'm just learning about things that are happening to me now that I was exposed to 30 years ago, not just getting old, just stuff that I was exposed to, you know, so I am in it as well. So, but thank
Secretary
you so much.
Smith, could I just ask you, right before you go, there was a question in the chat, but she had to leave.
Mhm.
And so this might segue in with, you know, what might be done. And apparently there is House Resolution 2436 was introduced in April, referred to the Subcommittee on Disability Assistance and Memorial Affairs in July. But they did not discuss it during their hearing this morning. And she wants to know, is there any push from the VA to get the subcommittee to take up burn pit legislation?
I don't know, but I will find out, and I will report back if that's okay. That was the first time that I've seen everything. Again, like I said, we're repositioning ourselves, and I want our agency to be doing that type of legislative tracking so that we'll know what's going on. Miss Torno, I did see her last month when we were in Reno. I was one of those state directors, you know, there. So it was good to see her again, you know, tonight. So, but again, thank you so very much. I hope I'm not being rude, but I need the bounce, as the kids say, to get ready for the next thing. So,
no, it's not rude at
so
all.
much.
Secretary Smith, thank you so much. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate your time.
Okay.
We value it. And Earl has also put a very good comment, kind of question in the chat. Wouldn't it be nice if the VA was helpful instead of obstructive? And is this just an old culture that needs to be evolved, which we're going to let Chris address because he's with the VA.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good question.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, sir. You know, we can't do things the way we used to do them 20 years ago. I don't know if anything costs, you know, look here, don't get me started. I'll be quoting my grandmother soon about how things don't cost the same. So I'm going to go ahead on and go, but I will look into 2436 and I will report back.
And we look forward to you joining us next time.
Okay,
Thank you,
great.
Ms. Secretary.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Have a good evening, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hey, am I okay to talk about Earl stuff?
Yes, go ahead. And then we've got a question from Charles Powell. When you're done, Chris, it's probably to you.
Okay. So Earl, what you're doing right now is exactly what you should be doing. You should be getting Congress to kind of change the laws. I don't agree personally with all the laws at VA either. You know, there's things I'd love to see changed. The VA right now, how we recognize Agent Orange exposures, we go off a list that Department of Defense gives us, and they swear up and down that they can tell us everywhere Agent Orange was used. Now, as a veteran, you know, who served in the military, you know, Whenever I hear somebody claim they can tell us everywhere Agent Orange was shipped, I was on a call where we spoke about this with a Department of Defense rep many years ago when I used to work, when I was working claims. My job was to verify Agent Orange exposure. They give you a list, and here's where we can confirm it was used. And they basically got on this call and said that, hey, we can tell you everywhere every barrel was shipped. And I asked the very pointed question of, if you can tell us everywhere it was shipped, how come we keep getting new places added to the list? I was like, either you're not telling us every place it's been used, or what you're telling me that you can verify everywhere it's shipped isn't accurate. And you could have heard a pin drop in that call when I made that comment. We need people out there advocating for these laws to be changed, so VA can grant these benefits. A lot of people see it as VA not caring. We're kind of given these rules we operate within. I want that. I want to see that bill passed for Agent Orange in Panama. I want to see a bill passed for Agent Orange exposure in Guam. I want to see these other locations where hundreds and hundreds of vets have told us, that I was exposed in this location or that location to these things. We need laws passed, so we can grant these benefits. We need veterans out there advocating with Congress to try to get these bills passed so we can start granting these benefits. You would hear everyone, 80% of the people I work with are veterans. The person who trained me here was a Vietnam veteran. He was the one who trained me on how to verify Agent Orange exposure. He and I's opinion on how things are done, don't echo our personal feelings. We want to see legislation, and we want to see things where we can grant these benefits. What you're doing to try to get these House bills passed is exactly what we need to see. We need to see action from people so we can start doing this. You can't depend on VA to go out and advocate for you. VA is a big government system. They try to advocate for veterans as best we can, but at the end of the day, if Congress passes a law saying we can grant these benefits, we're going to grant these benefits. Pressure on Congress to pass more burn pit legislation, to open up more presumptive conditions. That's what we need. That's what we need is people out there doing these things.
Thank you, Chris. So what I'm taking away from this is it starts with all of us talking to all the veterans that we know and bringing their issues forward. And then we need to talk to somebody at DVS in New Mexico to advocate. We need to talk to VA, but we also need to pass laws, and we need to keep our VA running and fully serviced and fully staffed and fully funded. So I think what we're going to do, and I'm going to ask anyone here who wants to help, we're going to write up this process and we're going to post this on our website and get this out on how we can collaborate to get these laws passed and trickle down all the way to get every veteran taken care of. It's a lot of work.
An easy answer for that, like, for example, I did not catch Earl's House bill number on there. Call your local representative and tell them, hey, you need to support this bill. You need to support
It's House Bill 5026, and you're exactly right.
Call them and tell them you need to support this bill, because that's what moves things. That is what moves things. Pressure on Congress to move things.
We may have a question here, Charles Powell, sir.
Yeah, yes. Actually, it's not a question. I wanted to respond to what Ms. Duffy mentioned about the VA wanting to see your pocketbook before they serve you. I wanted to comment that I've been a veteran for over 55 years now, and it wasn't always that way. When I was a student, when I was unemployed, when I had a job that didn't provide health care, I went to the VA, and all I had to do was show I was a veteran, and they took care of me. In South Dakota, Minnesota, New Mexico, I got served by the VA. without any questions about my enrollment and how much I made. But nowadays that has changed dramatically. And I believe it started when Reagan was president, where they established levels of priority within the VA. And I believe there are 8 different levels. And of course, at the very top priority are people with service-connected conditions. I don't have any, or at least I don't have any documented conditions. But now I have to keep getting re-enrolled. Like when I needed hearing aids, I got enrolled. The VA tested me. They provided me with really great hearing aids, which I'm not wearing now. I should be, but that they took care. But then about a year later, I called and inquired about the COVID vaccine. And their first question was, are you enrolled? Or no, they told me. I gave them my name and some more information. And then they came back telling me I was unenrolled and that I needed to get enrolled. So in a year's time, they had dropped me because I hadn't used it within that year. So people are advising me, well, I should go for a physical annually in order to stay enrolled. I don't think that that's the way it should be. I really miss my old VA where they were there when I needed them. And it wasn't that I had to keep using it in order for them to serve me. So anyway, it didn't always be that way. And I miss my old VA.
Charles, thank you so much for bringing that forward. And I just want to, if anyone doesn't know Charles Powell, I'd be surprised, but he's been very active with Veterans for Peace, as is Bill Tydewald, who's also on the call. But you know, this is interesting. So this is like one of those instances where we really want to have our grandfather's VA. You know how they always say this isn't your grandfather's whatever? I think we want our grandfather's VA brought back.
That's,
Chris,
what
do you
he's
want
talking
to
about
address
is
that?
definitely- I would definitely like to address that a little bit. You know, even though I'm not on the hospital side of things, I can kind of talk a little bit about that. Yeah. So now VA's got 2 ways. They've got he's absolutely right. There's 8 levels of priority at VA. And they've changed that over the years to kind of cut back on the number of people VA handles. Right now, the best, they're either do it checking on your income if you're not service connected for stuff, but if you're service connected at 50% or higher, VA care is free. That's why it's very important to get benefits granted to veterans, so they can get that care at the VA hospital. I would definitely love to see VA care opened up to a broader array of veterans. What he's talking about, where you have to keep constantly enrolling because you haven't used it for a while, I'm not a big fan of that as well. I think it should be once you're enrolled, you're kind of good. You can just be seen. A lot of vets fall through the cracks, for VA care because they don't think they qualify, or they've been told you don't qualify because of income. There's numerous reasons. One big thing was the veterans who were dishonorably discharged. Can't be seen there. There's a lot of improvements that could be made to accessibility over at the VA hospital. That's another thing. We need to pressure Congress to open that up. That's where the rubber hits the road for VA. We're kind of going off of what Congress tells us, to do. Pass a law saying we're going to open this up to everybody, and they fund it. VA wants to see as many vets as we can. VA wants to grant service connection to as many veterans as we can. We need pressure to pass these laws to make things safe. That's
Good.
where you guys are. You can be the best advocates for VA in the world just by calling Congress and saying, support this House resolution. I want to see more presumptive conditions for burn pits. People, the more they get calls like that, I'll give you a great example of something that changed overnight. the VA, there was a push at VA where they were going to discontinue unemployability benefits for veterans once they hit the age of 65. And that got put out. The phones blew up at the congressional representatives' offices. That died within a week. That the push for that to do that to vets, to end unemployability benefits at 65, was gone within a week. It was just like, no, we're not going to do this, because people were blowing up their phones. Stuff like that is what makes things move. Tell your friends, tell your family members, call them about these things. That's what makes things happen.
The old squeaky wheel. All right.
Exactly.
Pat Gaston, you got a question, ma'am?
Yes, I did. I had for Chris, because he can't see the chat. Chris, is there anything on folks in Honduras as far as burn pits?
As far as burn pits, no, not at the moment. They're only really doing the Gulf War area stuff. Afghanistan is, they call Afghanistan not Gulf War area, even though to me it's kind of in the Gulf War region. That could change, too. I mean, the burn pit stuff drives me crazy that they've acted so slowly on this. And I'd love to talk to Maria and Jesse about this, if they could reach out to me. I know my information's in the chat. If they could send me an email, I'd love to talk to them about this. They had things evolve, so at someday maybe the Honduras would be added. I find it funny that, we talk about burn pit for this era, but we don't talk about burn pit for Vietnam when they were also burning feces all over the place. Anybody who thinks being around burning, human feces is a good thing, probably a little bit, out there, because inhaling that stuff is, it's just obvious it can't be good for you, not including all the other stuff that we've been burning in the Middle East. I also had some stuff for you, Pat, like when you were talking about your breast cancer earlier, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if you Google breast cancer and burn pits, you're going to find a lot of information on there that people have already done a lot of the groundwork for you. I Googled that during the thing. If you just Google breast cancer and burn pits, you're going to find a wealth of information out there that'll help you support your case.
Awesome. Appreciate that.
Best cases. DAV has a big one that it was the first hit on Google that talked about somebody who had to fight for that. Be interesting to see if breast cancer and what cancers are added for the burn pit stuff. I'm looking forward to that too. I would suggest everyone on here, call your congressman, push through the burn pit stuff, get robust legislation to help these veterans. You need that. You need that. There's people I work with, half the people I work with here are Gulf War vets. Half of them here have burn pit issues. They have, Gulf War illness issues. We want to see that pushed through too.
Chris, thank you. I've got a quick question. Maybe Earl knows if Honduras is included in HR 5026 for coverage for toxins. Do you know?
I don't think so. I think it's strictly Panama.
Say again?
I don't think it's included. No.
Okay. Well,
do you know if it includes Guam, Earl?
Pardon me?
Do you know if it includes Guam? Because we get a lot of claims for Agent Orange for Guam.
It might. I don't have it in front of me right now. So,
okay.
Yeah, just pull it up on Google.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do real quick.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, folks, it's been 2 hours. And what that tells me is that we have had fabulous speakers on with very informative comments, very relevant to all of us. And I think we're going to collaborate and work together as a team here, because we have got to get our burn pit veterans and veterans that were exposed to particulate matter that was toxic taken care of. And you've heard from Chris and from Secretary Smith. They're all ears. So let's do this. This is recorded. It'll be on our website. And we're going to probably have a separate page for this. I think it's that important. So please just keep checking with us. Thank you, everybody, so much for your time. The speakers who are here, the ones who are left. I really appreciate it very much. And I hope we see you next month.
And if Maria and Jesse are still on the line, I would love, I know my contact info is in there somewhere. I can't view the chat. If you guys could email me, I'd love to talk to you guys. I'd also love to talk
Chris,
to you, Donna.
They're gone and I will connect you. Okay.
Oh, connect me. That'd be perfect. Because I'd love
Yeah.
to talk to them.
And thanks so much for speaking in the blind. It's a pain in the neck, but I really appreciate it. I know you're very busy.
Oh, no problem. This did run a lot longer, but these are important things. These are.
Yeah, they really are. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Happy birthday again, Nicole.